Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. National Chairman of All Progressives Congress, APC, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, yesterday admitted that the leadership of the ruling party did not consult sufficiently before arriving at its position on zoning and choice of nominees for the headship of the 10th National Assembly. Adamu accepted responsibility for all that the zoning arrangement had caused in the party and promised that the party would reconsider its position. But some aggrieved aspirants to the National Assembly's principal positions yesterday stormed the National Secretariat of APC in Abuja with a warning to the National Working Committee of the party that the opposition parties might have their way as regards the legislative offices if the proposed zoning arrangement was not reviewed. Some of the top contenders for the Senate presidency in the 10th National Assembly have stormed the National Secretariat of the governing All Progressives Congress to seek a review of the controversial zoning arrangement announced by the party. Arise senior correspondent Indi Malgu tells us more.
Those at the meeting in what could be described as a replica of the drama that played out on Wednesday at the APC National Secretariat between the National Working Committee and some top contenders and the House of Representatives in the NAS leadership race. It was the turn of their colleagues in the Red Chamber, the Senate, to visit on Thursday. Senator Abdulaziz Yeri led Senators Oji Uzokalo, Sani Musa, and Osita Izunaso, who sent a representative to hold a meeting on the controversial zoning of NAS presiding officers. In a no-holds-barred presentation, Senator Uzokalo threatened that if the APC does not retrace its steps on the controversial zoning arrangement, senators would reject the party on Proclamation Day.
We are going to say, no, I'm a party man. I'm a believer of the party. And this is only why I came with three of them. One colleague is not here because I have never disobeyed this party. This is first time we are going to say no to what the party says. They were not going to do this in the floor of the Senate.
Senator Musa says for equity, inclusivity, and considering what the North Central brought to the table and the just concluded elections, the region should be giving a sense of belonging by having at least the Deputy President of the Senate zoned to it.
These injustices need to be corrected. We have 6 geopolitical zones. The President is from Southwest. We have Vice President from Northeast. We have the office of Deputy Senate, we have a President of the Senate, Deputy Senate President, Speaker, and Deputy Speaker. It is only fair. With 4 geopolitical zones, you throw.
Senator Yari says the alleged injustice in the zoning arrangement has to be reviewed so that the All Progressives Congress will not disintegrate.
Anything on the contrary, wallahi, the Northern Nigeria will take another decision against APC, and that will be bad.
After receiving the letter by the senators outlining their grievances, APC National Chairman Senator Abdullahi Adamu asked the senators to hold their fire and consult more.
Hold the fire until the last word is heard from us.
With major contenders of the National Assembly leadership positions threatening to ditch the party's arrangement, it's left to be seen how the APC national leadership would handle the requests by the aggrieved lawmakers. Ndi Amugo, Arise News.
Well, Rufai, we're missing Dr. Bati today again. We'll look forward to having him back on Monday.
Yeah, Dr. Bati, come.
Well, you've seen the reports by Indi Malgo, and just looking at, we've been talking about this for a number of days now, and this is the update on that. Your take on the story?
I mean, the truth has to be said. I think we said this yesterday, that they were heading for sort of like a place of no return if they don't backtrack. And it's obvious. The party chairman, Adamu, has come out to say that they didn't consult widely enough. But I ask, should that be what Adamu should say? Isn't it a reflection of the fact that APC has dropped the ball with its own internal politics? Such a very sensitive matter after a very highly contested election. and you have the temerity not to consult widely enough, and you know there are many fault lines, they forget in a hurry that this election was not no other election. This is the first election since the return to democracy that the winner didn't pass the 10 million threshold. If my memory serves me right. Didn't pass the 10 million threshold. So what are we talking about? It was a highly contested election, and you see there are variegated fault lines. Truth has to be told. This election was highly contested. The winner got 8 million votes.
Yeah.
A little over 8 million votes. The second position got, close to that number.
6 million.
About 6 million, over 6 million thereabout.
Yeah.
Third got 6 million. Over 6 million. That's to show you that the hitherto win points that the APC had wasn't the same any longer. For the very first time in a long while, the APC just took about 2.7 million votes out of the Northwest. Normally, the APC will sweep Katsina. They will sweep Kano with heavy numbers. Those two states alone was enough to give them those big numbers. But for the first time, they just took 2.7 million votes away from the Northwest. What does that speak? It speaks volumes. It speaks about the fact that there's fragmentation in the perception of the people about your political party in the first place. Then, secondly, it also speaks about the fact that you need to understand the pressure points when you want to go about your zoning. But you just went ahead, zoned, gave key positions to people, just like that. So what about places like the North Central? What about places like the Southeast? And that's why they're already telling the NWC that we might have to do deals with the opposition. And they will do deals with the opposition. So it's incumbent on the APC to now introspect on how it wants to solve this problem. Because obviously they don't have a way around it. And Mr. Adamu obviously doesn't have all the answers. That's why I said, oh, hold your fire, hold your fire. Yes, they will hold their fire. But the question is, how long are they going to hold their fire? What are we today? 12th, right? Of May.
Today is the 12th of May.
12th of May. June is just around the corner. Exactly a month. 13th of June, isn't it?
The 14th of June.
14th of June. So just a month away. You had better get everything done. And the president-elect is not in the country. So probably when he gets back, this is one thing he has to sort out. Because you had better sort this out for the APC. The APC had better sort it out among themselves. Else, what happened in 2015 would even be a child's play. But on the flip side of the analysis, to be able to balance it out, there's also a talk about party supremacy. And the thing about Nigerian politicians is, when you see them holding very strong to a fault line, most likely it's not because they really believe so much in that fault line. It's because of their own selfish interest. And sometimes the argument, the louder their voice in the argument, is the juicier the deal they get. So there's another factor there about the possibility of a juicy deal for all of these people that are agitating. But really, is the logic of the agitation right? Yes, there's mass marginalization across board, which is divisive. But the APC should not forget, the fault lines are very deep. And I'm sure they saw it in the numbers of the people that even emerged in the National Assembly. This is the first election. If my memory serves me right, maybe I'll make a caveat for maybe 1999 elections. But I would say I have to even fact check that figure. I don't have the figure off my head. But this is the first election in a long while that the winner didn't pass the 10 million mark threshold. And you can fact check me on that. Maybe say for the 1999 elections, maybe 2003 elections. But I know from 2007, Yar'Adua got over the 20 million threshold. Over the 10 million threshold. Jonathan got over the 10 million threshold. Even President Buhari got over the 10 million threshold. So it's a very fragmented election. And the elections are still very highly contested in court. So the APC had better watch it in their own best interest.
Absolutely. I mean, thank you very much, Rufai. A few thoughts here. The aspirants who met with the chairman of the APC were Senator Orji Uzor Kalu, Senator Sani Usman Musa, and Senator Abubakar Yari, former governor of Zamfara State. Yes, and they had gone with their agitations, and they had talked about, we talked about this even yesterday, the chairman of the Southwest Progressives Forum's governor, Governor Rotimi Akeredolu, had described it as being unjust. He had said that it was skewed and people felt marginalized. So these are not the first few people, but this time they stormed the APC Secretariat, National Secretariat in Abuja, to express their how aggrieved they were. In response, the chairman of the APC had then said that he agreed that perhaps they didn't consult with the main stakeholders, if I could put it that way, in this case, the senators who would actually be voting, and that he's happy to admit when they've done wrong and also say they'll go back to the drawing table. Now, in admitting, I think that's one thing that we must give kudos for. One of the hallmarks of a good leader is the ability to reflect and apologize, or perhaps go back when you feel like you've been wrong and not stick to your guns saying that this is it. It has caused a lot of uproar. We've been talking about it. It's dominated news headlines this week in terms of the zoning formula. Yesterday, I also talked about the fact that they moved away from tradition, whereby they would zone to a geopolitical zone, but not necessarily pick or anoint a particular individual.
No, they do.
Well, this was part of the issues. This was part of the issue. Well, they would have a preferred candidate.
Yes.
But in terms of putting individuals in each of the position, as opposed to allowing the senators vote, having a fair playing ground, even though it's been zoned to a particular geopolitical zone. This was part of what they had brought before him, that it's against the rules of the Senate. At the end of the day, they're the ones who would decide, even if the party decides to zone to, in the spirit of fairness. They also, of course, brought a very strong case for the North Central, which we've talked about a number of times. Senator Sani Musa himself, who is from that zone, had said that in fact, the warning was so strong that they asserted that if they were not careful, beyond the 2015 incident that happened, there was going to be a showdown, and they shouldn't forget that they were going to be in government for 4 years. I thought that was quite interesting because Senator Yari had brought up a strong case that the North gave the APC the highest percentage of votes for their win in the last election. Therefore, they could say that the North owned the president-elect. And I thought that's a curious statement to make, because it is beyond this particular appointment or this particular decision. It goes to other aspects. Appointments of principal officers in his cabinet. Is this what we're going to continue to see, where the North says, well, we're the ones that gave you the highest number of votes, so we should play primarily in your government? So these are things that we should also begin to check. Statements like this are very heavy. And then beyond that is also the fact that Senator Abdullahi Adamu, the chairman, said that they had to wait. He acknowledged that the president-elect was not in the country and that he played a critical role in determining who would then emerge. It's statements like this that we should look at curiously and closely, especially in the appointment of principal office in this nation. The president-elect had assured Nigerians that it was going to be based on competence. He had said it was not going to be the old order of things. In fact, the word we kept hearing during electioneering was progressive. So we would begin to see right from these initial appointments or these initial zonings how progressive or how much away from the old order we're going to move. Well, Sokoto State Governor and Chairman of People's Democratic Party, PDP Governors Forum, Aminu Tambuwal, has said he's confident that the Presidential Election Tribunal would restore the mandate of PDP presidential candidate and former Vice President Atiku Abubakar as President of Nigeria. Tambuwal spoke at a reception and send forth organized by the forum for its incoming governors and outgoing state chief executives, respectively. Atiku Abubakar is also urging the PDP to address internal issues and restore the party to its former glory. He highlights the party's decline since 1999. Aminu Tambuwal commended the solidarity and comradeship between the outgoing governors of the party, while the acting national chairman advised the newly elected governors to drive the party towards its peak.
We have a number of challenges. We started as a dominant political party in 1999, and since then we have been receding I think it is time for us to take a stock and find out why are we receding and how can we make sure that our eminent position as the leading political party in this country, as the oldest political party in this country, we regain our position. This is a very, very important challenge, which I believe requires a whole day of a seminar.
I'm praying that this occasion will give us the opportunity to talk and speak on the way forward. And also to use this singular opportunity to call for cooperation, peace, and organization, and putting the party members in the states together. What is happening in some states today already is very unfortunate.
I commend all of you for your solidarity, comradeship. As a first among equals, I can vouch to the warm support and friendship of the governors of our party. Sometimes it was tough agreeing in all things, but we never forgot to put our interest behind that of our party, people, and nation. The moments we have shared under this forum have been moments of joy, learning, comradeship, support for one another, and a desire for the best of our party, state, and country.
A number of important things there that have been said at that reception, both reception and send forth. What's your take on this, Rufai?
I mean, a lot of things. But number one, you see, whatever the APC is going through now, in managing itself, the PDP has gone through it. And they are now talking from a point of hindsight. Because you see, majorly political parties are interest groups, but their sole aim most of the time is to win elections and to stay in power. And once they don't get into power, they start to introspect on what cost them that power. This particular gathering was talking about reclaiming lost glory and looking for the possibility of the future. One of the reasons why they are talking about reclaiming lost glory is because they are not in power. And when you are not in power, everything leaves you. And that's why you can even see the shenanigan in their party as it speaks today. The division. You saw the G5 incident. The fact that the soul of the party, the PDP, is still being contested for as we speak today. You saw what happened to Yocha Ayu. You saw how the party is trying to stabilize after that. There's still no that coherent force. And in fact, there are indications that there are some centripetal forces now trying to take over the party because of the antecedents in the party. And that's why they're calling for unity reconciliation, saying to their members, oh, things will calm down, probably when we reclaim our mandate, but it's for the courts to be able to judge that. But it's just an indication that, you see, when you violate the tenets of justice, you can see the fallback effect. What happened to the PDP? Those violations. Just like what the APC is doing now. You remember when they had arrangements that power must go to the south. And Alhaji Atiku Abubakar emerged. Some people felt disgruntled. Although you will say those people were doing it for their selfish interest. But they had a logic to hold on to, which you can't deny them of. You also remember what happened in 2015. How there was an imbalance when President Goodluck Jonathan was seeking re-election, because it was still supposed to be the turn of Umar Musa Yar'Adua. So you can see all that have transpired within the PDP. But as they try as much as possible to couple themselves together, we'll see how it pans out. But most importantly, are they going to learn the tenets of fairness and justice and equity, which some people argued, that was lacking after their presidential primaries and the emergence in this last election, 2023? And how they are going to move forward is incumbent on them. But political parties should go to the ants, O ye sluggard, like he said in the book of Proverbs, consider your ways and be wise. This used to be one of the biggest political parties in Africa at a point in this country. In fact, somebody once said, Vincent Ogbulafo, that the PDP will rule for the next 60 years. But internal crisis, see where it has led them.
Right, yeah, so internal crisis, and the big question is, and perhaps we should begin to consider, is that, is this the beginning of the end of the great PDP? I say this because the last time the PDP held a prominent position in terms of the highest office in the land, the presidency, was when they won the 2011 elections with President Goodluck Jonathan, after which in 2015, President Muhammadu Buhari, under the umbrella of the APC, came into power. Beyond that, after that time, they tried, subsequent elections after that to come back, into Aso Rock. However, it has been quite futile. It's then interesting to listen to the presidential aspirant or the presidential flag bearer of the PDP say in that video at the reception held for incoming governors-elect and outgoing governors who had served that the PDP had hit a recession. It was receding. And he even referred to the lost glory of the party. It means that there's an acknowledgement that things are not quite as right. Recall that the PDP used, and I use the word used very loosely, in terms of being the main opposition party. So even though they were not the ruling party for the last 8 years, they served as the main opposition. And despite criticisms here and there as to how strong they were as an opposition party in terms of their voice, at least you would say that they held the government of the day to account and they gave them a run for their money. So in states where the APC would come first, especially for governorship level, the PDP would come either a close second or give them a right run for the money and vice versa. So where the APC wasn't winning, the PDP was winning. But 2023 was a game changer. We saw the emergence of a third force. And this third force began to give the main opposition party a further run for their money and divide votes even more. It ate into the votes that they would have gotten in other states. You take Lagos State for an example. It would have been aware that the contest was mainly between the APC and the PDP. The PDP in this case being the main opposition party. However, the Labour Party came on board and displaced the PDP in second place to third place. And this we saw across different parts whereby the PDP truly struggled to maintain even the second position in states where they would have comfortably held on to that. We saw that also play out in the presidential elections where the margin between the second and the third was very, very close. This time, a former vice president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and a former governor of a state were battling it out with a very small margin. And of course, there are a number of factors that must be considered when you begin to think of the decline of the PDP. Alhaji Atiku Abubakar himself has said it in that video, that they would need more than a whole day's strategy session to begin to get things back together. But if there must be a force to reckon with in the next few years, then they must get their acts together. A number of anti-party activities have happened, they must address that. A number of governors and people who are one leg in, one leg out, they must address that. Unity of the parties is a key point, and even perhaps time to have an ideology that they can all abide by.